This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's really amazing. We're only here a short while, and we saw so many chayos and amazing animals. And I want to share with you a very interesting brief presentation. Is there a biblical obligation to visit a safari in your lifetime? Are you obligated to visit a safari? So it's very interesting. When the circuses began, the poskim discussed, are you allowed to go to a circus? And the Shaus Tshuvas Arugas Haboisem and other poskim came to the conclusion that even though the only way in those days to make the bracha of Mishana Habrios would be to go to the circus, they did not allow people to go to the circus. It was considered forbidden to go to a circus. So then the question became, now that there's zoos, are you allowed to go to the zoo? And Rabbi Yosef wrote a tshuva in Yabia Omer, in Chilek Daled, Simen Chaf, and Rabbi Vadia said you're allowed to go to a zoo to be making the bracha of Mishana Habrios. And he brought a raya from the Chida. The Chida, we know, was one of the most prolific writers. The Chida was born in 1724. And the Chida, in many of his travels, described the various zoos that he visited, the various animals that he saw. He writes about the wondrous animals he saw in the Tower of London and in many other zoos. And based on that, Rabbi Vadia concludes that it's permitted to go to a zoo to say the bracha of Mishana Habrios. The question, though, is one obligated to go to a zoo? Let's say every day you go to the Beis Medrash and you learn in all of your free time. Are you obligated to go to a zoo to make the bracha of Mishana Habrios? So it's very interesting. Some of the poskim, for example, the Yalkut Avram, comes to the conclusion that even though the Chida on many occasions visited the zoo, one is not obligated to go to the zoo to be able to make the bracha of Mishana Habrios. There's an article that was written by Eliezer Brut where he comes to the conclusion that if the Chida went to the zoo numerous times and he describes many animals that he saw, and not each animal that he saw would warrant the bracha of Mishana Habrios, it has to be that at least once in your lifetime you would have to go to a zoo to be able to make the bracha of Mishana Habrios. I don't think that's a very compelling conclusion. The fact that the Chida went to the zoo numerous times doesn't mean that every individual is obligated to go to a zoo. We don't know why the Chida wanted to go to the zoo. The Chida never wrote in the Birkei Yosef, you're obligated to go to the zoo. You can't derive halacha l'maisa from a report of a story of what the Chida did personally. We don't know what his personal calculations are. But I want to share with you something very interesting. By the way, Meir Benayahu, in the official biography on the Chida, HaChida, says that the Chida was very curious. He always wanted to investigate new things. The Chida even writes about various plants that he would see on his visits and his trips. However, what's very interesting is that many people like to say over a story of Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch, even though we don't really have any recorded evidence that he said this. Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch once on a visit, when he came back from the Alps, so he was asked, where he went and why he went there. And Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch says that the reason he visited the Alps is, he said, now I can answer properly when Hashem asks me in the world of truth, did you see my Alps? This is like one of the most famous, oft-repeated stories that we have no recorded, written record that Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch actually said this upon his visit to the Alps. It's printed in his biography, but he never wrote it himself. But I want to read to you from the collected writings of Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch something that he did say, perhaps even more emphatically than this story. Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch wrote as follows: I almost believe. So now, he doesn't actually say he does believe, but he says, I almost believe that all you homebodies, some people like to go and some people like to stay home. Says Rav Shamshon, I almost believe that all you homebodies will one day have to gain atonement for having stayed indoors. And when you seek entrance to the world of truth, and they ask you, and they want to know, and you're going to say, God, I want to see your marvels in the heavens. So the heavens are going to say, why didn't you see my marvels on earth? Then ashamed you will mumble, well, I missed the opportunity. How different were our great rabbis in this respect. They breathed, they felt, they thought, they lived God's marvelous nature. How they wanted to awaken our senses for all that is sublime and beautiful in creation. How they wanted to teach us to fashion a wreath of adoration for God out of the morning's rays and the evening blush, out of the daylight and the night shadows, out of the star's glimmer and the flower scent, out of the roar of the sea, the rumble of the thunder, the flash of the lightning. How they wanted to demonstrate to us that every creature, listen to this, Chazal wanted us to understand that every creature was a preacher of his power, a monitor of our duties. What a divine revelation they made of the book of nature. So, is there a halachic obligation to go on a safari? No, it happens not to be in Shulchan Aruch. It doesn't say in Shulchan Aruch that you're obligated to go to a safari. But one day, when you go upstairs and you want to see the neflois of the creation, you're not going to have to face the question, well, why didn't you do it here on earth? Because at least you flew all the way to Africa to see neflois haboire, and you'll have an easier time getting into the Mesifta Harakiah where they show the neflois HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, Be'ezus Hashem, since it is somewhat of a mitzvah to visit a safari, and mitzvah is tzrichas kavana, wouldn't it be a shame that you flew all the way to Africa to see the wonders of Hashem, and you weren't mechavein to be mekayim the mitzvah? So if you want to actually get credit for being mekayim the mitzvah, which I don't know, maybe it's a mitzvah d'oraisa, you could say to study the wonders of Hashem. Actually, Rabbeinu Yonah says that one of the greatest avenues of avodas Hashem is hisboinenus b'chasdei Hashem. Mitzvah is tzrichas kavana. So, Ernest, what's your name? Ernest. Ernest is giving us the opportunity to mekayim the mitzvah, and mitzvah is tzrichas kavana. So you could be mechavein hineni muchan umezuman lekayim ha mitzvah of hisboinenus b'neflois habayre. Okay, we'll talk more about it later on in the day. Thank you.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.